Good to know.
It's perfectly justified.
It was the best thing I did.
So I'm on the opposite end now, where they're only connected in one place with the droids have taken over.
Yeah, that was just okay.
But that's like 2 from the end.
It's true.
I want to go back and watch my season last one because I can remember it. It's so old.
You can turn it more towards you if you want to.
Well, how about yourself?
Yeah, this is the last great French toast.
Chow down, I'm going to give you 2 minutes.
I can stop at so
Also, Fries the Pink Ladies is Fries the Pink Ladies is serious? It's more modern. It's good. It's good. I like it. No, not yet. It's a good
The only thing you really need. I'm just waiting for you to finish.
I think we're waiting for it, so put it aside. But eventually,
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to read the roll, please.
Mr. Ellerby?
Here.
Ms. Franklin?
Here.
Ms. French?
Here.
Mr. Pethridge?
Here.
Ms. Ragu? Here. Mr. Bracken? Here. Mayor Snavely?
Here. We are all here, so if you would like to join us, you may. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll move now to public participation, and the first thing on our list is a proclamation. Whereas every day, more than 120 Americans are killed by gun violence, and more than 200 are shot and wounded, with an average of more than 17,000 gun homicides every year. And whereas in January 2013, Hadia Pendleton was tragically shot and killed at age 15, and on June 2nd, to recognize the 26th birthday of Hadia Pendleton, people across the United States will recognize National Gun Violence Awareness Day and will wear orange in tribute to Hadia Pendleton and other victims of gun violence and the loved ones of those victims. And whereas the idea was inspired by a group of Hadia's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange, they chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods. And orange is a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 2nd, the first Friday in June 2023, to help raise awareness about gun violence. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the wrong hands, and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our children safe. Now, therefore, I, William B. Snavely, Mayor of the City of Oxford, Ohio, do hereby proclaim Friday, June 2nd, 2023, as National Gun Violence Awareness Day, and I encourage all citizens to support their local community's efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. And we have to accept this student representatives from Students Demand Action at Miami University. Why don't you come on either side? She's taking hers. You must have. Would you like to sing? Turn around and say thank you. I was reminded by my relatives, who are all life members of the NRA, that gun safety is not a partisan issue. So I would remind all of us that this is an important issue and one that we should all pay attention to. All right, if anyone else would like to address council about items that are not on the agenda, or if they're on the consent agenda, you can come forward right now and give us your name and where you live for the record, and we'd be glad to listen to you for up to 5 minutes. Seeing no one jumping up, I am going to move to the consent agenda and ask for a motion to approve it.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any items to be removed? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And the consent agenda is approved. We'll move to resolutions, and the clerk may read the first one.
A resolution authorizing alcoholic beverages to be sold and consumed at the Freedom Festival event on Monday, July 3rd, 2023, with a rain date of July 4th, 2023, from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Oxford Community Park, located at 6801 Fairfield Road, Oxford, Ohio, 45056.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Casey, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. So as this says, it's a request to sell and consume beer only. It says alcoholic beverages, but this would be beer only at the Freedom Festival event at the community park. The Oxford Chamber of Commerce would be the permit holder, or the applicant in this case. And then the outline of where it would be permitted within the park. If you can picture the park, it's the baseball diamonds, which are all fenced in with chain link fence all the way around. So that is what we will send into the state if you approve this tonight, and request that just within that area. And the hours of the sale would only be from 5 to 9. The event itself is from 5 to 10 with fireworks at 10. So we're closing off the sale before the end of the event to kind of allow that buffer period as well. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Super. Thank you, Casey. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this resolution? Okay, counselors, questions or comments? Sounds like a fun time. This is a voice vote, so all those in favor of the resolution indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution is adopted. Thank you, Casey.
Thank you.
Next resolution you can read.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for up to $1 million from the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Highway Administration Charging and Infrastructure Grant with required 20% match.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt the resolution? So moved. Sir, thank you very much. Jessica, I'm really happy to see you bring this one.
Good evening. So this is a new grant that has been announced by the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed, and it is for EV charging networks to be expanded that not along highway corridors. And it specifically calls out small towns, rural communities, and tribal communities. And so in reading through the grant qualifications, it sounds like we are a very eligible community. It does require a 20% match. And so I'm working with Mike and his team the reason we're asking for up to 1 million is we're refining that budget. But at the highest level, that match would be, 200,000. And this would likely be if awarded, the project would occur in 2024. But the application is due May 30th. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Oh, I should tell you, we're thinking about doing 2 dual chargers in lot 52 where the farmer's market is. So there'll be 4 rapid chargers there. And then 1 dual charger behind the city building in our parking lot. So there'll be 2 chargers there. So those are the proposed locations, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, and these are level 3 chargers, the higher level?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this resolution? Councilors? Okay, Glenn?
Are these gonna be the same charge point chargers that are around?
I might let Mr. Dreisbach answer the technical question about the type of charger.
Absolutely.
We're pleased with ChargePoint, so we would probably select them for the collection of fees and transmitting the money back to the city.
Okay.
They give great reports and great service, so we would likely choose them again.
Okay. That's what I was assuming, and I didn't want to assume this being a public meeting for the city.
Okay. Well, I could have just said yes.
Chantel?
The chargers in the municipal building, would the signage be confusing? Because would people expect that they can park there and leave it?
It does have to be publicly accessible charging, so we would have to work on our signage to let people know that they're allowed to park there and charge.
Okay.
I'm really excited that we're doing this. I think it's good for the community. It's good for our small businesses. And as somebody who has used those across the country, they bring people into town. And this is a place where they might come and want to have lunch and shop in the area while their car is charging up. So I'm very much in favor of it. Thank you.
And I would say that this is the, if the industry goes the way it's supposed to go, which is no new cars really sold other than electric by 2035, I think the scale of infrastructure change that's going to be required to support those cars is kind of, we're going to have to swap out the infrastructure that we currently have that delivers petroleum to people at gas stations, and we're going to have to really stay on this in order to support the fleet change. So thank you.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? All right. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution is adopted. Yay. All right. We'll now move to the third.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for $1.5 million for a new Talawanda Oxford Pantry and Social Services Facility from the Butler County American Rescue Plan Act funds.
Okay. And is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Jessica?
We are asking council to consider tabling this for a vote at the second meeting in May. We've been working closely with the TOPS board to develop an operating budget, which is what the county commissioners wanted to see, a 5-year projected operating budget. However, when Doug and I saw their first draft, we did have some concerns and asked them to kind of redraft it, and they said they could get it done. And then they wrote me over the weekend and said, you know what, we didn't get it done. Can we please meet with you? And so they'd like to meet with Doug and I next week and bring this back forward to you at the second meeting in May, if that would be all right.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there anybody from the public who wants to address this, although it's likely to be tabled? Hi, Kathy. You came all this way.
Came all this
You
way.
came all the way from Ireland, I think.
I came all the way from Ireland for this meeting. Kathy Brinkman, 404 Emerald Woods Drive. I don't have a prepared statement tonight. I've read prepared statements several times about this issue. I've gone to the Butler County Commissioner meeting, listened to their confusion about what the priorities are, and tonight I was hoping that we would vote for it and continue all the good that TOPS and FRC do by building, a new building. But apparently we're going to table it, so I'll be back in a couple weeks to say this again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. We appreciate it. Councilors, you want to table this? If so, a motion would be in order.
So moved. My move we table.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to table this resolution until our next meeting. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. It's tabled. We will move then to the last resolution.
A resolution affirming the value of diversity and academic freedom to the City of Oxford, home of Miami University, and opposing Senate Bill 83.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All right. This is generated by counselors, so I'm happy to let Alex, you want to talk about it briefly?
Sure. So, first of all, thank you to Councilor Prithridge for co-writing this with me. I just thought that it's particularly important for us as a council in a college town to express the depth of harm that a bill like SB 83 could cause to a community like ours, not only in terms of what it can do to academic freedom and the ability for all students to come to a classroom and feel like they can discuss and learn, but there are very real, tangible implications with, Councilor Franklin, you said the other day with your program in particular, accreditation is a big question mark for students thinking about coming to Miami for their degree programs. If students choose not to come here, for better or worse, Miami is a significant part of our of our town population, of our economy, and if students choose to go elsewhere, we lose that, and I don't know how we make that back. So it's incredibly important for the vibrancy of small Ohio towns that are connected to universities, and Oxford's not the only one. Granville, Denison, Otterbein, Ashland, Worcester, the list goes on and on. So it just felt really important to me that we express how important strong universities are for not only the sake of the students, but then for the sake of the livelihood of the people who are our constituents, who we are supposed to represent. David, I don't know if you have anything to add.
You want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you paid attention to SB 83 and its prohibitions on even, being able to do diversity, inclusion training, to create these kind of like, you have to teach fairness on controversial topics, which are cherry picked to be the ones that they, the legislature doesn't want us to talk about. Tenuring, I mean, you could talk about that from an academic point of view, but I really come back to the economics of this, which is like, students can go to colleges in any one of the 50 states and internationally, and if we make Ohio an unattractive place for people to come, they will go to other states. If Miami wants to recruit people to be employed, it needs to be a place that is competitive in terms of, and so I don't know what our legislature is thinking. Maybe they think that people will flock to universities that it gags on free speech, where you cannot procure an abortion, I think if they think this is going to help our educational system, I think they may be mistaken. So I think we have to speak up, because I think Miami's livelihood is our livelihood, and SB 83 is bad for education, it's bad for college towns, it's bad for Ohio, and we got to speak up.
Okay, before we have a discussion up here, is there anyone from the public who would like to address this resolution? Okay. I know that for myself, I was really glad to see this resolution. I think it's well written, and it is so backward. I guess they're trying to out-Florida Florida, but it's something where faculty who are the top faculty are the ones who will have mobility, and they're the ones who will leave. And so when we're trying to attract new faculty, who's going to come here in the state of Ohio, and Ohio State, and Miami, and all the other state schools are going to be hurt by this. And to not allow students from China to study here, it obviously will have an economic deleterious effect on the academics, on the economics of our town, it seems to me. Yeah, Glenn?
I have a unique perspective on how Miami handles something like this. for a legislature or for a legislator, especially at the state level, to come up with a bill like this, I personally don't think they came up with it. I think they had help. And I'm very curious as to the origin of this particular bill. But that's beside the point I want to make up here. Miami University is a liberal arts college. It builds its foundation on having a diverse breadth and depth of knowledge and having diverse cultures and perspectives is one of the cornerstones of a liberal arts college, and it's part of the competitive advantage of both Miami University and the city of Oxford, because we are accepting of diverse populations, cultures, and accepting of those interminglings so that individuals that come here leave a little bit better than they started. The thing I don't get is how it didn't die in committee and how it actually made it to the floor, because that to me signals that there are certain values at the state level in Ohio that are somewhat troubling. And to your point, Mayor, people that are mobile will just leave. And that is very detrimental to all kinds of things. And I've come up here and talked about unintended consequences of things for many years. And this to me feels like a value signal for a very small group of people that is going to cause a tremendous unintended consequence to the entire state. Now, whether or not it actually gets passed, we'll see. But I'm pretty sure the city of Oxford, myself, because I only like to speak for myself, really hopes this doesn't happen so that we don't get lumped into connotations of, oh, we're another Texas, or we're another Florida, or we're another some kind of state that likes to espouse values that not everybody agrees with. So hopefully this thing doesn't make it out of the Senate. So that's all I have to say about that.
Thanks, Glenn. Anyone else?
Yeah, I said a lot last week, but to answer your question, Councillor Ellerby, there's a group called the Manhattan Institute that is part of this. There's another institute. They're writing this legislation from sort of some kind of think tank, and they're involved in the legislation in Arizona, in Florida. So the other thing about this legislation that's problematic is it doesn't show Ohio's independence, their ability to think about what's good for Ohio. They're using outside groups to write legislation, people who don't even live in Ohio or understand our state. So it's showing a dependence on this outside group that I don't think shows the independent mindedness of our state. There was a really strong showing at the state, at the legislature in Columbus, I guess a couple weeks ago now, but a lot of people went out. I submitted written testimony, a lot of other people did. I think they got an earful for about 7.5 hours, mostly of people who were strongly opposed to this legislation. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's, like I said, it's not only an assault on academic freedom, but it's an assault on our community. Is there further discussion?
I could add something. I thought we've covered it very well, but I'll add that I think this happens because when you have a very gerrymandered state, you don't have to appeal to a broad spectrum of your voters because you've already been designated your voters for you. And so that makes the legislation more and more extreme because they're appealing to an extreme faction of the voters. And so these bills go around to generally red states, and when one's successful, it goes on to the next, and the next, and the next. And it helps people win primaries. And they win the general because it's already been gerrymandered. So just wanted to add that. That's, I think, how we got here and why we have a series of pretty terrible bills coming through Ohio.
Okay. Are you ready to vote? All those in favor of the resolution indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Resolution is adopted. We shouldn't have to do resolutions like this against something that heinous. I'm afraid there will be more. All right. Ordinances, first reading.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 3697, supplemental budget ordinance number 3, to make supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2023.
Okay, and this is first reading. And Heidi, welcome.
Good evening. We bring this supplemental appropriation ordinance number 3 to make an adjustment for budgeted revenue and grant money that was awarded by the Oxford Community Foundation in the amount of $11,000 and the budgeted expenditures for the twinkle lights that was proposed. And the second issue is to make adjustment to budgeted revenue for increased parking ticket writing and budgeted expenditures for a Tier 2 elevation through parking software. So when the police department took on contract with Passport, they were guaranteed a contract price for a certain number of parking tickets. That number was exceeded, therefore the expenditure rose to a level Tier 2.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance? Counselors, do you have any questions or comments?
I just want to say thank you to Heidi. You crushed it. That was great. And also, getting to vote for twinkle light budgets is a delight that I never thought I would get to do. So thank you.
You know, you just wait your whole career that you can vote on a twinkle light resolution.
I just wanted to reiterate, I know that obviously to step in as acting finance director under circumstances you would never have chosen, but it certainly helps an organization when the bench is deep enough that someone can step up and without a pause continue with the good work, which is really nice. Joe is a really, really valuable employee, but it's also nice to know that there's some backup in the system, and it seems like the finance department was a really solid team, and so here under sad circumstances, but happy to have you.
Okay. All right, this will come back to us at our next meeting, and we'll vote on it then. Second reading.
An ordinance repealing noxious vegetation, Oxford Code Sections 935-19, 935-21, 935-22, and 935-99 due to redundant code sections in Oxford Property Maintenance 130502, subsection 3024.
Okay. And any changes?
No changes.
Okay. So for those in the public, this particular ordinance is about just removing redundant codes. The next one will come with what is going to replace some of that. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance? Okay. Is there a motion? I forgot. I need a motion to approve this ordinance.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. And discussion? Anyone have any comments or questions? Okay, you can call the roll.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Mr. Prethridge?
Yes.
Ms. Ragu?
Yes.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby?
Yes.
Mayor Snavely?
Yes. So the ordinance is adopted. We'll move to number 2.
An ordinance amending the Oxford Property Maintenance Code, Section 130502, to allow for managed natural lawns to exceed the 10-inch height limitation by creating a definition and height expectations.
Okay, is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Anything new?
It's nothing new, but I can explain it if you would
Sure,
like.
why don't you explain it briefly?
Sure, we'll do. So the intent of this code section is just to create some new definition and some parameters for explaining what a managed natural lawn is. It's already allowed under the current code, but there was some clarity requested by the community to make sure that there was opportunity for pollinator gardens, those types of things, that to exceed the 10-inch height limit on lawns. So this wouldn't allow turf grass to grow just uncontrolled, but it would for intentional plantings for people to have managed lawns for pollinator gardens, those kinds of things for purposes of biodiversity, to create more variety and vegetation in residential areas. And I will add, unrelated to this in the code, but from a promotional standpoint, the city has recently completed an RFP process for a biodiversity education campaign, and that's being handled by the city manager's office and will be going on throughout the summer. To pair with this code amendment as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions from the public? John, come on up.
John Ralinowski, 3 Peabody Drive. Just want to thank the staff and council for considering this and helping with the reclarification of the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. I should note that John's our chair of our environmental commission, who's done a lot of work on this, and we appreciate the work that you've done. Yep. Okay, anyone else wish to address this ordinance? Councilors? Okay, call the roll. Oh,
well,
go
just
ahead, Dave.
I just want to thank staff again and the Environmental Commission. Peggy Brandstrader was here last time and talked. It was a long and winding road, but it's a good place where we got. And thank you for Sam for kind of reiterating the purpose. I know we're doing public education, but people are here today and listening, and so it's good that we reiterate. I mean, we're confronting simultaneously a climate crisis and a biodiversity crisis. And that's hard, but we also do, most of us manage a lot of lawn area that we typically mow, and it takes fuel to mow it, and it doesn't generate any biodiversity. So if we can actually make a big difference in our yards, supporting a little bit of biodiversity, and it doesn't need to be your whole yard, it could be a corner, an edge, and creating a little bit of room for species can help. We can make a really big difference. And you know, it was permitted under the code, but I think Oxford's a law-abiding community. We want to stick with the code, and if there's ambiguity, people don't want to do that. So I think the idea that we make it explicitly clear, yes, you can do this thing, the managed natural lawn area, which is, you know, it can be a variety of planting, it should be natives, no noxious weeds, it can be whatever height, but yeah, clear, turf grass is a no. You know, letting your grass curve, no. So there's a distinction there, and it takes a plan, and it's not easy, but if you've done it in your yards, you know it's rewarding, and I'm glad that we're supporting this even in a small way. I would say, however, that if you look at the scope of some of the challenges that we face, we're going to have to make some major changes to our codes and our culture. You know, the scope of the changes are that big. This took a really heavy lift to get through, and I think we're going to have to figure out how we can, because I think this is a really small thing. You know, some of the things we're going to be looking at are going to be really big and complicated. So if we can find a way internally to get on the same page so we can move stuff through more quickly, because this took really a lot of time and many hours of conversation. I'm glad we're here, but again, this was a relatively small thing. Building electrification will be a big thing. You know, there's going to be some big things coming down the pike. So,
Thanks, Dave. I think just giving it a name, Managed Natural Lawns, is an accomplishment that is worth our time. If there's no further discussion, call the roll.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Mr. Prethridge?
yes.
Ms. Ragu?
Yes.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Mayor Snavely?
Yes, the ordinance is adopted. And we will move now to announcements and communications. I'll start with City Manager Elliott.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just have a couple things tonight. First off, I wanted to address Chris Coughlin's comments at our last council meeting. As we all know, Chris is our chairman of our HAPC, and he had raised questions about the Caroline Harrison building, which is at 131, 141 West High Street. So I met with staff, Mike, Sam, and Jessica, and put together a memo, and I apologize, Chris. I thought I was sent it to you, and I see that I didn't. So you're hearing it tonight for the first time, but we wanted to respond to that because it is a concern, and we always have room for improvement. So basically, first off, I want to share with you that Jessica contacted the owner, Lindsay Myers, on April 19th, and he is expecting to have final inspection completed by May 19th. He's aware that Boland and Troy will not be permitted temporary or final occupancy in the 9 South College Suite until the overall original shell building has final occupancy approval. And Sam spoke to him and shared that information with him, and he's okay with that because he's at a current location. But he's also anxious to get into his new building. So the scheduling of the final building inspection, when that happens, will trigger zoning, HAPC, and engineering inspections. These inspections could trigger punch lists for Mr. Myers to complete before the temporary or final certificate of occupancy will be allowed to be released. So in addition to the administrative processes of building permits and occupancy certificates, Chris also mentioned the 2-year deadline of the HAPC certificate of appropriateness which expired last week. Typically, if work is underway, and this is from Sam's email to me, if work is underway, permitted, and is being done according to all approved plans, the city has not issued violation notices or penalties of any kind. Code 152.08I requires substantial completion, which allows some latitude. In the case of Caroline Harrison Building, I think the owner is very solidly in the clear, since the exterior portion of the building is well over 95% complete and done according to approved plans. The larger issue that we will need to track more closely is, of course, preventing owners from occupying buildings without approval. Once that happens, the timing of completion becomes a higher risk. The occupancy of these apartments was a rare case in that there was no bank or insurance company asking for a document from the city. The Community Development Office is still holding the temporary occupancy certificates from the building official because of incomplete items. As we've discussed with other departments recently, we're looking at other tools for preventing this from occurring, such as but not limited to prohibiting access to water supply and increased civil fines under Section 503 of the Oxford Code, depending on degree of life, safety, and risk for the occupants. As I think we all know, this is one of the largest building footprints in the uptown. And of course, the students did not move in when the semester started. They had to find accommodations for them elsewhere. They had supply issues, and like most projects do. So, you know, we recognize there's room for improvement on the city side, but it's always hard for us because every project for student housing, they want to get it done in a year and move the students in, and we do our best to accommodate them because we start getting calls from parents about what's going on here. So, you know, it's a balancing act. So, you know, we're going to work to improve the process, and like I said, one, I guess, heavy incentive that we have is we won't turn the water on. We will leave the sprinkler system on because we don't want anything like that to happen. So, you know, bear with us. This was, like I said, a big building in the uptown, and I think it looks very nice now, to be quite frank with you. I noticed today as I came to the council meeting tonight, they have the pavers on the steps up to the building, so that's good because, and they also took the barricades down. So, you know, I think they're getting there, and like I said, Jessica did talk to Lindsay Myers, emphasized how important it was, and if you got any questions, I'd be glad to answer them on that. But let me share one other thing with you, if you don't mind, and then I'll be done. I did have a discussion with Affordable Gas and Electric, our broker for our electric aggregation program. As you probably know, our contract with our supplier, Energy Harbor, expires at the end of this year. So we've requested from Duke a list of the customers, and of course it changes all the time because students move in, move out. But we need to get that so that they can use that information to contact suppliers about a new contract. I think I shared with you their estimate. Duke's price to compare is probably going to be around 10 cents per kilowatt hour. We're probably looking at 7 cents per kilowatt hour for our electric aggregation program. And as you know, we're presently at 4.71 cents. So it's going to be a rather big jump for electric users. But I'll keep you posted on that. And hopefully I'll have some information in August to bring back to City Council. That's all I had, unless you have questions for me.
Okay. Can I ask one question then? Does Mr. Myers understand that nobody, students or commercial, can occupy that building until all of the permits are issued?
I think he does now. Like I said, there's room for improvement.
Well,
this was a
I
big
hope he
building.
understands it now, and I hope that the city holds firm.
Yeah.
Along a similar vein, do we know if he has summer renters living in the building as far as students go?
I don't know that.
Okay.
I don't think he shared that with us, or Jessica asked him. Yeah.
Good question.
Can you ask?
I can ask him.
Yeah. Because they shouldn't be allowed in there until, summer's a lot easier. He's got a lot of other properties they could move to, but nobody should be in that building until all of the permits have been issued. And that goes for everybody. We're not picking on Mr. Myers. We're saying this is what we do with all buildings, and we need to be consistent. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay. Mike?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Chief Jones? Heidi?
I just wanted to publicly thank everyone for being so supportive for all of our staff and a lot of the citizens of Oxford, a lot of our vendors. Everybody has been wonderful. It has been extremely hard for our office to deal with Joe's passing. We became a great team and worked really well together, and our whole office just has been amazing for the last several years. So it's tough, but I just want to say thank you.
It is very tough, and we're proud of you for hanging in there, working together. Casey?
Just a quick reminder that Epic Cup Soccer was here last weekend. It'll be here again this weekend. Expect thousands of people from out of town in for a couple of days. The weather forecast this weekend is looking perfect for any outdoor sport, so that usually brings even more people. So expect a lot of extra traffic on Saturday and Sunday. And then just a quick update on our full-time position that's open right now. We have an aquatics and recreation coordinator position that's open. We have been through second round interviews and intend to make a decision on that by the end of this week. So you'll probably see some sort of announcement later this week or early next week on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Chief Deathridge? Okay, thank you. Sam?
I don't know if anyone is listening that will be moving out coming soon, but we would just encourage people to plan ahead so that there's less trash on the curb. There will not be containers around the Mile Square this year, but ShareFest will be available at Chestnut Fields for people that can get their items down there. And so we just ask for people to plan ahead and try to donate as much as they can. Thank you.
And not just throw garbage out on the curb. I don't get that, but yes. Jessica? Why would you think that that was okay?
Just a few updates. One, Sam did mention that we have contracted with a partner for our biodiversity communication campaign, and I just want to let everyone know they've selected Three Valley Conservation Trust to help us develop that communication language. It'll be launched in June and will be a 12-week campaign where each week we have a new message paired with graphics, and we're pretty excited about it. And we'll have giveaways. It's going to be a whole fun thing. I also have a correction in our e-news today that we put out that we turned in 212 pounds of over-the-counter drugs in one day. Woo! Except that was 212 pounds over a 6-month period is what I meant to say. So, in our one-day collection, there was 89.2 pounds, still an impressive count, with 22.4 pounds at the high school, 13.2 pounds at Miami University Police Department, and 53.6 pounds at the Tri-Community Center for a total of 89.2 pounds in one day. So, just want to make that correction. And then finally, it is Municipal Clerk Month, and so I'd like to recognize Heather and Marianne Eaton before her. These professional women create our agendas, manage our minutes, our public records request, and in 1 year and a half, Heather has helped us modernize and move to Civic Clerk. She's also leading a tremendous effort to update all citywide records retention policies. It's a bundle of fun, but she makes it fun. So Heather, thanks for all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
I don't have anything else.
Okay. Chris, welcome back.
Thank you. The reason I wasn't here at the last council meeting is that I attended the legislative fly-in in Washington, D.C. On behalf of the region. Two things I'll comment on is that one of the speakers focused on the Ohio Rail project. I would encourage people not to get their hopes up too much for that, but what I can address is that it was on the radar. They acknowledge it's primarily a state initiative, but certainly the federal government's aware of it, and I think that gives cause for some optimism, although there were no timetables, nothing spoken about other than substantively. One could thinks it's a good idea. And then my second observation is, as your law director, my role is not one that's political, so please do not interpret my comments to be political in nature, more observational. Part of the legislative fly-in is where we have an opportunity to meet with the elected officials who represent us in Washington, D.C. And it's an interesting phenomenon when one meets and interacts with them individually. The interactions are one that one believes to be reasonable and thoughtful and promoting of the area. It's until apparently when people get off into their separate groups that the craziness happens. And so I do think that our elected officials are trying to do the best they can within the confines of the environment that they live in there. For example, the information we were provided by Congressman Turner was that 2 years ago, or in the last sequence cycle 2 years ago, Ohio received the fourth most beneficiary, or the beneficiary of the requested funding. Last cycle, we were fifth in the country, but there was more total money that was given. So these programs are really helpful to the elected officials in Washington, D.C., because the grassroots initiative by the officials, whether municipal officials or elected officials, gives them the framework and the context to promote the ideas. And so it was a worthwhile and fascinating process when you get a little bit behind the scenes. But certainly it's a bizarre place to see when you watch it function. So thank you.
Thank you. Glenn?
I am actually really excited for an event that we're going to have here in 3 weeks, I think. The Oxford, was it craft beer?
Wine and
Festival.
yeah.
And hopefully we have fantastic weather as opposed to the last time we had. That's pretty much it for me.
Yeah. Pray for sunshine.
I am going to add some praise for Heather. I attended the Lunch and Learn last week. We learned about bees and natural lawns and wasps, and it was great. I learned a ton of information, and Ashley as well. Ashley helped plan it too. It was a great event, and I look forward to future engagement opportunities. Thanks.
Thank you.
Wanted to highlight some attention on the election coming up in August. I think it's probably one of our most important, and just like what Amber was saying and Glenn was saying, that there are people from out of state that are the puppeteers behind these, I would say, rather strategic, very cunning plans. As we know in November that there is a referendum that will likely be on the ballot to talk about reproductive freedom. And what is happening in August is that they're trying to raise the vote that is required to pass that referendum. Just to block this, they want to raise it up to 60%. So anyone who is afraid of the people voting, who needs to change the rules so they can win, and is begging for money from out-of-state billionaires, Richard Uline, who's an Illinois billionaire who sells office supplies all over, is the person who is donated $1.1 million to fund this election. So super important election. Everyone needs to go out in August. This is something that it doesn't matter which party is in control. Anyone who has too much power should not be able to rig elections. So this will have long-standing implications beyond just reproductive freedom.
Thank you.
A few things, but not very long. One is, I love what I learned from you, Mr. Kennard, from the law clerk. So we had a discussion about the perpetuity clause. It's all over the news now regarding Disney and DeSantis.
That's right.
So it's like, oh, I learned that first on City Council. I knew that already. I want to thank Councilors Prithridge and Councilor French for working on that resolution. I know it takes some time to draft a resolution together. Super important. I was at the Electric Root Festival on Saturday, and it was loads of fun. I was there all day, read a proclamation. It was great to see officers, Hartwig and Butler out there engaging with the public, having a good time with us. And the rain held off until about half an hour before the night ended, and then it came down heavily and cold. But it was a great time. And also from Paco, we had a call for haikus, and we got 68 people submit haiku poems that we're going to be judging. the winners and looking to have businesses cooperate with us so that we can have window clings in the businesses to display the haikus. But it's just fun to see all of these creative people, from children to older adults, submitting haikus here in Oxford. So thank you, Jessica, for your help with that as well. And Ashley.
Nothing more for me tonight.
All right, three things. First, I want to commend and thank Glenn Ciccone, who's upstairs filming our meetings. It's one of the unseen and unspoken roles, but he enables us to communicate what we do to the public reliably. We keep him up late some nights, so thank you, Glenn. I wanted to do a shout out to the police department. I know that I, like many of us, reached a point with the plastic confetti, which was just like it was enough on campus and off, and the police department did put out a post to remind people that littering pieces of plastic all over is actually litter. And we have codes against that, not that anyone's threatening to enforce it, but it was a good reminder. I know it circulated on the parents' page, and I hope that people just find a different way to celebrate without non-biodegradable pieces of plastic that blow in the wind. The last thing I just want to mention, a little more substantive, is that just I know many of us are aware of the changes that are happening at Talawanda. One of the major, under the budget constraints, is that they've eliminated busing in our community, which at one level is a Talawanda issue, but I know on the Parking and Transportation Advisory Board, specifically motivated by Carla Blackmar, has been really concerned about what the city can do to help deal with and anticipate. I mean, some of the stuff is kind of going to be about traffic management in the Mile Square. There's going to be a lot of traffic of people dropping off. And I want to thank Sam Perry for working with Amy Museshko at the school district to start those conversations. But one of the other things that we're hoping to do, and this is kind of an ask for staff, which is that we've recognized for a while that some of the routes to schools could be safer. We have some pretty busy intersections between neighborhoods and schools. We made some really good progress with like the installation of sidewalks, but we still have kind of unresolved pinch points that make it really hard for a fifth grader to safely get to school. So to the degree it's possible to help support those kids, because I think we're going to see a lot more walking and biking just out of necessity, because there will be no busing within 2 miles of the school, which is basically all of the city of Oxford. And so some parents are going to be able to drop their kids off, but some kids are just going to have to walk. And so, hopefully we can take a look at some of those intersections, and we can't reconstruct them between now and August, but if, for example, timing changes could make it a little safer for a pedestrian to get a head start, hopefully we can look at some of those things. So that's just kind of a thanks to staff. Our police department was really on board with the idea of looking at that. I know this kind of requires engineering help to look at the timing, the signalization, and Sam is kind of coordinating that. So a thank you to staff, and just to those people who are worried about the school district. I think we in the city know that, we have a role in trying to help address the problem, at least off campus. So.
Thank you, Dave.
Oh, it is it? Okay. Good.
Some fanfare around that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. One of my favorite
Walk
days
and bike
Kramer,
to school day.
Oh, the kids get so excited. I mean, I think a lot of kids would like to do it, but it's scary for good reasons. So.
Fortunately, it will be a little bit warmer.
Yeah.
Not warm, but it'll be a little bit warmer. The one thing I wanted to talk about briefly is, you may recall when we had Jeff and Natasha Hartman from Ukrainian Action were here, and we had a discussion with the city manager and myself, and we are moving forward with trying to identify a suitable sister city in Ukraine. And so I want council and the public to be aware that that is in the works at the present time. And also that former mayor, Mike Smith, and I have agreed to go to Poland in July, and we will be driving trucks for that last leg to the border. And if the situation is good enough, we will go into our, hopefully by then determined, sister city and meet with them. So that is our goal. And I want to thank the city manager for his cooperation and work on this, and staff is behind it, and I think that makes a big difference. And everything from Ukrainian Action has been very positive. And I hope that people listening, if anyone does, will consider supporting former Mayor Smith and myself by donating to Ukrainian Action. Don't donate to us. We're fine. We'll take care of ourselves. But donate to Ukrainian Action for humanitarian and medical supplies going to the people of Ukraine who really need it. And it is more evident this week than it was last, and that will probably continue. So that's my plea, to have people show a big turnout from Oxford of donations to Ukrainian Action. Thank you very much, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.